is home to one of the most legendary relay races on the planet. But what if you took that incredible spirit of endurance and moved it from the mountains down to the river? Well, today we're going to break down a creative concept that imagines exactly that. So let's start with the inspiration. Many of you know Hood to Coast. It's this iconic, unbelievably tough foot race that goes all the way from Mount Hood to the Pacific Ocean. Now, take that same grit, that same incredible challenge, and picture it on the water. That's the idea here. A brand new race from the Hood River all the way to the city of Portland, but this time, by boat. All right, so here's our game plan. First, we'll touch on the legendary inspiration. Then we'll dive into the new river challenge itself. We'll map out the course on the Columbia, break down the 3 different fleets of competitors, and talk about the one thing that could decide it all, the gorge wind. And finally, we'll look at the race for glory. Okay, let's get right into it. To really get this new idea, you first have to appreciate the absolute legend that sparked it. You see, Hood to Coast is way more than just a race. It's a real institution in the Pacific Northwest. It's known for being beautiful but brutal, and it forges these incredible bonds between teammates. It's that epic reputation that makes it the perfect launchpad for a whole new kind of adventure. So, keeping that iconic land race in mind, let's pivot to the new concept. We're talking about a totally different kind of endurance test, set on one of the most powerful and scenic rivers in America. And here it is, the big idea in a nutshell. It's simple, but kind of brilliant, right? Create a water-based sibling to Hood to Coast. The point isn't to just copy the original, but to take its spirit of endurance and community and translate it from the mountain trails to the mighty currents of the Columbia River. So, what would this race actually feel like? Where would you go? Let's trace the journey on the map. The whole race is really like a 3-act play. Act 1, you launched from Hood River, which is already a huge hub for water and wind sports. Act 2 is the main event. You've got to navigate the stunning but seriously challenging Columbia Gorge. And the final act? It's that last triumphant push to the finish line right on the Portland waterfront, with the whole city there to see it. Okay, but who are the racers? What kind of boats are we talking about here? Well, it's not just one big free-for-all. The concept lays out a really cool structure with a few different ways to compete. The race is actually split into 3 separate fleets. First up, you've got your human-powered vessels, then kayaks, canoes, rowing shells, anything you move with your own muscle. Then you've got the wind-powered fleet, sailboats, windsurfers, maybe even some of those crazy kite foils. And finally, there's a super modern category, electric-powered boats, which really opens the door for new tech. So you basically have 3 different races happening all at the same time on the same course. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Across all 3 of those fleets, there is one single massive force of nature that every single team will have to deal with. In fact, it's probably the one strategic factor that will decide who wins and who loses. You have to understand, the Columbia River Gorge isn't just a pretty backdrop for the race. It's a geographical phenomenon. It acts like a giant natural wind tunnel. The massive cliffs on both sides of the river squeeze the air, which channels and speeds up the wind, creating this incredibly powerful and predictable force. You can't avoid it. And here is the absolute game changer. That wind, it's a tailwind. It almost always blows west, down the river, pushing the racers exactly where they want to go, towards Portland. So instead of fighting against nature, you're trying to ride it. It's a massive built-in advantage if you know how to use it. And that, well, that changes everything. For the sailors and windsurfers, it's pretty obvious, right? But think about it. Even for the kayakers and the electric boats, figuring out how to use that tailwind to catch the right currents, to get that little extra push, that becomes the key. It turns the race into a contest of skill and strategy, not just who has the most raw power. Okay, so after you've battled the river and harnessed the wind, what's waiting for the winners at the finish line in Portland? Let's talk about the payoff. What's great is that this isn't some winner-take-all, free-for-all. To recognize the totally different skills involved, prizes are awarded to the top finishers in each of the 3 fleets. So the best human power team gets glory, the best wind power team gets glory, and the best electric power team gets glory. Everyone has a real shot. So it all comes down to this one big question. If you take the legendary spirit of a land race and fuse it with the raw, natural power of the Columbia River, could Hood to Port actually become the next great Pacific Northwest adventure? It's a pretty amazing idea, and it definitely leaves you thinking, what would it really take to bring this to life?